Abs are made in the kitchen, right? Wrong. Abs are built with resistance and gradual progression like any other muscle. And like all other muscles, removing the unwanted fat that covers them up is what allows them to show. If you look at an anatomy chart, it's clear to see that you're born with abs in the same way you're born with biceps, triceps, and every other muscle in the human body. They may not be impressive, but they're there. So whenever a so-called fitness professional tells you that abs are made in the kitchen, do me a favor and punch him in the face. Likewise, whenever some pot-belly powerlifter tells you that squatting and deadlifting is enough to build a solid set of six-pack abs, punch him in the face too. You see, the six-pack, or rectus abdominis, is a superficial muscle of the core. The key word here is muscle. Like any other muscle, the rectus abdominis can be hypertrophied, meaning you can build bigger, more developed abdominals in the same way you can build bigger pecs. However, just like you can't build a massive chest with nothing more than some push-ups, you won't develop neck-snapping abs from sitting in your room doing crunches every night. If you want deep abs that pop, there are two things that have to happen. For starters, you've got to understand the anatomy and physiology of the core. Once you understand what muscles are involved, and more importantly, what function they're responsible for, choosing the right exercises and how to perform them more effectively becomes obvious second. Once you've got your 2 to 3 key movements, focus on progression. If you're performing the right exercises while gradually increasing the load, your abs will grow. In this video, I want to go over the basic anatomy of the core and its functions, and then I want to go over the only 3 exercises you need for building deeper abs that pop the anatomy of the core. The superficial muscles of the core consist of the external obliques, the internal obliques, the rectus abdominis and the transverse abdominis. Acting together, these muscles form a firm wall that protects your internal organs and they help to maintain proper posture. They also aid in exhaling as well as to increase intra-abdominal pressure. That said, the actual functions of the core muscles are quite simple. First, they're responsible for stabilization of the spine. Thus, whenever we're flexing our abs to stabilize our posture during heavy compound lifts, we aren't just strengthening our core, we're also building the muscles involved. Second and more obvious, the superficial core muscles are responsible for flexion of the spine. Think about a crunching motion where we are bending forward to flex the abs, and although the obliques are involved in stabilization and flexion of the spine as well, they also play a larger role in lateral flexion of the spine as well as rotation of the trunk. Hence why we see gym goers performing endless amounts of side bends and bicycle crunches. Now that you understand what muscles you are targeting and what movement they're involved in, it's time to go over the best exercises for building a deeper, sharper six-pack heavy compounds. The first and most important movement for building deeper abs that pop are heavy compound lifts. Be it the squat, deadlift, overhead press, barbell row, or any other multi-joint movement that requires stabilization of the spine. These exercises alone, assuming you're progressing to heavier loads over time, will produce enough tension to hypertrophy the superficial muscles of the core. Let's look at a traditional back squat. An exercise where you are loading up the bar, placing it on your back, and utilizing core strength to stabilize the spine in order to maintain an upright position. Although this is primarily a lower body movement, there's no way you could go from squatting 135 pounds to 315 pounds without sufficient increases in core strength. When you are adding weight to these lifts, you're not just overloading the target muscles, you're overloading the core muscles as well. And because progressive overload is the main pathway by which we build muscle, it's not hard to see how making heavy compound lifts the focal point of your training will result in more developed abs. A weighted crunching movement. The next movement we must include in our training if the goal is well-developed abs is a movement where we can flex the spine under tension. Not only is it important to take a muscle through a full range of motion so that we can fully lengthen the muscle as well as achieve the shortest contraction, but we must also ensure that we are gradually introducing a new stress. This is why I'd suggest including the cable crunch as your primary movement for your direct ab work. Not only does this Exercise allows you to fully flex and extend the spine, but it also allows you to increase the load with little risk of injury. On top of that, this movement won't just build the superficial muscles, it'll increase core strength as well, making it easier and safer to load up on those heavy compound lifts. When it comes to performing the cable crunch, there are a few things people get wrong. First, a lot of people use their arms for momentum to help pull the weight down. This shifts the load off the abdominals and makes it a less effective exercise. Secondly, too many people perform this exercise by just flexing their hip and not their spine. You need to flex your spine to get a concentric contraction of your abdominals, otherwise it'll just be an isometric exercise for your abs. To perform this exercise safely and effectively, start with the rope close to your head, knees on the floor, arms locked in place, and your spine lengthened. Crunch over and bring your elbows to your knees to fully contract the abdominals. Control the weight on the way up and initiate the crunch once you're back in the starting position. Body rotation exercise. Between the heavy compound lifts and weighted crunching, your core is pretty much covered. But if you want to create the biggest visual impact, you may want to add a more oblique dominant exercise. According to the research, exercises that require constant abdominal stabilization as well as body rotation generate the most muscle activity in the obliques. Out of the 13 exercises researchers tested, the captain's chair and bicycle crunch showed to be the most effective for this particular region of the core. If I had to choose one, the captain's chair with some body rotation would be an easy choice, not just because it showed slightly better muscle activity, but more so due to the fact that it's easy to load. If you can perform this exercise for 15 reps using proper form, add some resistance by simply placing a dumbbell between your. Continue using the same amount of weight until you're able to perform 15 repetitions with proper form, and then increase the resistance by another 5 pounds and repeat this process gradually over time to ensure continuous progress. Now that you know exactly what exercises you should be performing, let's quickly go over AB training frequency. Like the calves, the ABS can take a bigger beating than larger muscle groups, thus a higher frequency of training is acceptable. But you must also keep in mind that you're already training the ABS a great deal by simply including heavy compound lifts throughout the week. So when should you train your ABS directly? The simple answer is when you can. I would highly discourage that you take an extra trip to the gym in order to fit in direct ab work. Instead, I would recommend throwing it in at the end of your workout as you see fit. For best results, I'd aim to add some direct ab work 2 to 3 times per week while focusing on progression. Did you find this video helpful? Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you never miss another video. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.